Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we started up the 2011-12 season, and so far so good in terms of how we actually wanted to simulate. So our team is 11-24-6, which is obviously not very good, but we do have some at least good stats that are important for the future of this team. Like we have guys like Gagne, who's still performing on 37 points through 41 games. A lot of other young guys doing well, like Cogliano, Eberle, that type of thing. And then in terms of goaltending, we are still having Devin Dubnyk post some relatively good numbers. As you can see, his save percentage is still above a 910, which is pretty awesome. So our team is still getting some good development from the young guys, while we're also trying to rebuild, which is also a good sign. So hopefully this year we get a really good draft pick, and hopefully we continue just to build up this team around the players that we already have, like Gagne, Cogliano, and Eberle. Obviously, there's some guys that won't be here long term in the future, like guys like Patrick O'Sullivan. Maybe eventually we'll move on from him or something like that. But right now, this team is looking the way that it probably should be, which is good to see. And like I said, hopefully we find ourselves a good prospect in the upcoming draft. Now, we're only halfway through the season at this point. We might go through the rest of the season in this episode. Really depends on how we simulate. But obviously, I'm not too sure if we'll trade away much pieces, because we kind of have a young enough roster on paper that we could honestly just maintain this roster for the season. There is guys like Sean Horkov, who I wouldn't mind trying to flip away, but for some reason, when I've been asking him, he still doesn't want to leave this team, even with our team doing as bad as they are. So hopefully he changes his mind sooner rather than later. Aside from that, though, there's not really anybody else on the forward group that I'd need to move right now. Like I said, Patrick O'Sullivan maybe eventually, but right now it's fine to hold on to him probably. And then defensively, there's not really anybody with a lot of trade value. Goaltending wise, I don't think I'm going to move on from Dubnyk yet, but Dubnyk will probably end up being our starter for a while until maybe Grubauer's ready to take over, something like that. So yeah, just interested to see what this team does the rest of the season, and interested to see obviously where we're going to be drafting in the offseason and such like that. So with that said, let's get you guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll get into assimilating some more, and hopefully this team kind of continues on the same path of young guys are assimilating well, but our team isn't. So the first comment is from Jared the Rabbit, who says, Grubauer, why are you like this? And yeah, Philip Grubauer's been kind of weird in the AHL at the moment, down in Springfield now. The AHL team has some pretty solid players on it. A lot of good overalls. Like these guys, honestly, most of them could be in the NHL next season. Guys like Hagelin, Burmistrov could be close. Nyquist might be there. Cody Hodgson, for instance. So I'm excited about that. But Philip Grubauer has been really weird, because if you look at like Brian Pitten's stats, for instance, he's much lower overall. He's been fantastic again this season. He's got a .923 save percentage as a 62 overall. Meanwhile, Grubauer, who's a 71 in the AHL, for some reason he has an 887 save percentage, but he also has 6 shutouts and a 2.34 goals against average. So his save percentage is atrocious, but when he is winning games, he's playing really, he's not allowing a lot of goals against. So basically, I guess technically he's losing games like maybe 3-2, stuff like that, but he doesn't face a ton of shots in those games. I don't really know, because he's faced 549 shots right now this season. I'm curious on what the average is like for goals, like how many shots it takes for a goal to go in for him. Like 549 and then divided by 62, or 62 divided by 549. I don't even know how you'd figure that out, really. I think it's basically, if my math is right, yeah, I guess it's technically like 1 out of every 8 shots or 9 shots around is a goal against. Something like that, which is kind of strange considering his goals against is so low. But yeah, he's been off to a really weird start, and at least he's developing, but it's just kind of strange when he's obviously one of our better goalie prospects that we have. So hopefully he continues to improve on the save percentage department. At least he's getting a good goals against, and he's also getting shutouts and wins, but he needs to be much better in the AHL, especially with how good that roster looks down in the minors. And the last and final comment is from Michael Dose, who says, embrace the rebuild, folks. And yes, sir, gotta embrace that rebuild. I think we're in a pretty good spot in terms of building up this team for the future right now. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, but if you look at our core players that could be here for the long haul, Gagne, Eberle, Brule maybe for a little bit, Cogliano maybe for a bit, Obviously, in the bottom six, there's even guys I might not get rid of. Guys like Zach Boychuk, for instance. He's only 22. Riley Nash is only 22. So those two guys may be future third liners, or one's a fourth liner, one's a third liner. So don't mind that too much. Defensive core is quite young, so a lot of these guys could end up being here for a while, at least until we get some prospects ready. And then goaltending wise, I mean, Dubnyk could be here for a few years before we obviously go to Grubauer at some point. And even some of these scratches are relatively young, like Inverleisen, for instance. So I do really like the young core we have on this team in the NHL. And then, like I said, the AHL, like guys like Carl Hagelin, Burmistrov, and a lot of other dudes could honestly be on the NHL team next season if they get a good amount of growth. So very excited to see what our team's going to be looking like in a few years once we draft some more elite prospects and get some guys coming from the minors. Like Carl Hagelin's definitely one of our best prospects right now in terms of overall. Like he could easily be on the NHL right now, but I think I would prefer to wait till next season to get him into the lineup unless we trade somebody away. So with that said, I think we're ready to continue simulating. I do actually want to take a look if there's been any trades so far this season, because I don't think there has been, right? No, there hasn't. Okay. And apparently Maltby signed, I guess, in late December to a one-year contract with the Coyotes. Interesting. So let's continue to simulate and see what ends up happening. Like I said, we could end up simulating the rest of the season in this episode. Just depends on if this team kind of maintains what we're doing right now. Because obviously if we start simulating too good, maybe we need to offload some pieces. If we continue simulating like this, we could easily just kind of maintain the roster and then come back to maybe trading guys away like Horkoff and O'Sullivan in the offseason if we want to. But Horkoff's still going to be a little bit stubborn to move out. So let's go to the end of January, see what we got in terms of this month. Nashville's a 9-2 loss. Well, that's not a good defensive effort, and I feel bad for Devin Dubnyk if he was in that game as the Rangers fired their head coach. All right, but a 9-2 loss. Yikes. We do beat San Jose in a shootout, so at least that's a nice little win and a shootout loss to Vancouver. Like I said, it's okay if we win some games, but obviously we don't want to win too much. So it's good to see that sometimes our team is able to pull off a win or have at least a close game with a team that is in the playoffs right now. We don't need Ron Hainsey because we're not trying to make the playoffs, but thank you, Atlanta. We do lose in a shootout to Calgary as well, so we are losing a lot of extra frame games, but that's all right. Tampa's an OT win. Pittsburgh 6-1 loss, not really surprised. We do beat the Blackhawks 4-1 and then lose to Anaheim. I'm kind of surprised we could beat teams like Chicago. Like, Chicago is literally 37-16-1, and we just beat them 4-1. So that's relatively an impressive victory for this young team. So those are the type of victories I like seeing, just if our team randomly beats a really good team, to see how they compare to those like contender teams. All right. So we still should be pretty low in the standings at the moment, kind of seeing like the save percentage. Dubnyk's save percentage has dropped down from a 911 to a 909, so it is getting a little bit worse as you'd expect with this team. But hopefully he could not drop below a 900. Obviously, below a 900 is pretty bad. Having a 905 on this team to like a 910 plus would be great, but obviously I don't expect him to really have the craziest results by the end of the season, just because this team really shouldn't be simulating that good defensively or in net for that matter. So let's continue to go through the months. Let's go to the end or middle of February, just to kind of get a little bit of it done at a time. We do beat Carolina 2-1, so there's a good effort from Dubnyk there. I like those type of victories for him, as Buffalo has fired their head coach. Not really a surprise at this point in time, because Buffalo obviously in 2011-12 that would have been the start of them missing the playoffs all the way until current day and age, which is kind of insane. As Robert Nilsson has been injured with an injured arm. Don't know what that means. Did he break his arm? Did he dislocate his shoulder? What did he do? But he's out till February the 14th, so probably just a bruised arm or something like that. But I thought he should be able to play through an injury like that. We have lost back-to-back overtime games, but then we lose 2 straight regulation games, and Nilsson is back. So we'll get him back into the lineup. He was playing where Rod Pelly currently is. I'm still really excited to see what this team's looking like in a few years. Like, I think we're going to have a fun team at some point. Like, having guys like Gagne, having guys from this draft coming up, like, it's going to be really interesting just to see how our team's situated when we're actually making the playoffs again. 4-1 win over the Yotes there, that's nice, but we are below them in the standings, so we are still beating some better teams than us. Let's go to a day before the deadline and see where we're up at that point in time. We got 16 wins so far. Ottawa is another win, so back-to-back wins, good defensive games. And then we lose to the Oats after we beat them earlier in the week. Interesting. Game against Toronto coming up. OT loss. Minnesota is a loss, and Vancouver is an 8-3 loss. I mean, Vancouver's a good team. So 17, 35, and 11 a day before the trade deadline. I mean, it's not as bad as I was anticipating, but that's okay. We want to be at this kind of spot. So we are still dead last in not the entire league. We are 10 points up on the Rangers. So the Rangers are having a really rough 2011-12 season, and I don't really know why, but let's see some stats here. Dubnik's back up to a 911 save percentage, so he's still maintaining those good stats, which is nice. And then in terms of our team stats here, you can see we're 29th in goals for, we're 30th in goals against, 24th on the power play, and 27th on the penalty kill. And it looks like Buffalo's having a really tough time here in 2011-12 as well. So Buffalo is falling off just as anticipated. Will they make it back to the playoffs before they did in real life? Because obviously they haven't yet at this point in time. Will they have like a decade plus of darkness? Tough to say. Tough to say. All right. Do I want to do any player or try and trade away any players? Can I even talk to Horkov about waiving his clause again? I don't remember if I can. Maybe. Oh, it looks like I can. So since we're close to the deadline, we'll see if we could try and still move on from Horkov, but I don't know if he wants to or not still. Let's try and get 3 teams for him. It still says very risky. We're still just going to try and ask him and see if he's willing to waive at this point. And he's actually willing to this time. Okay. He said this comes as a surprise, which is not a surprise because I've asked you 3 times now. But he says, but if you believe it's for the best, I'll consider other teams. I'll circle back with my list once I've made a decision. So Sean Horkov is giving us 3 teams, which is good to see. I think it's just because of how bad this team has been. So we got to try and figure out a deal with those 3 teams that he wants to go to now. So if we go to our edit line screen, let's see what team Sean Horkov would be willing to go to. If we move on from him, likely I will call up either Hodgson or Burmeister for the rest of the season, just to give him some experience. Because they're both depth forwards. Hodgson's been pretty damn good so far, and Burmeister's been a very good player too. So, wouldn't mind getting one of them up here. I probably would go with Hodgson just because Omark and McDonald don't matter as much. So, I probably go for Hodgson, or I could just call up somebody like Anton Lander even for that matter. But, what teams have interest in Sean Horkov, or what teams does he have interest in? Because this is his stat line so far this season. He's on pace for less points than last year's. Plus minus is atrocious, obviously, too. Because this team has definitely taken a fall off. He's probably not going to fetch us a ton, but still, we might as well get rid of his contract while we have the chance to. So the teams he's willing to go to are Colorado, Columbus, and Philadelphia. All right. Colorado, Columbus, and Philadelphia. Well, if we want to send him to a cup contender, I think Philadelphia would be the best bet, but I am going to write down here on a notepad what teams are interested in him so we can kind of just figure out what deals we want to make for him. So we have Colorado, we have CBJ, and we also have Philadelphia. So he almost wants to be kind of like, I guess, Jeff Carter in a sense. He wants to go to Columbus or Philadelphia, which is interesting. All right, so let's see what we could do in terms of getting him to one of those teams he's interested in. So if we go to proposed trade, because we're a day before the deadline, we might as well make this deal before the deadline. Let's see, Colorado. What even is the trade value on somebody like Sean Horkov? Colorado's not a very good team right now. They're 28, 29, and 7. I almost feel like it would make more sense to send him to a team that could win the Stanley Cup this year, just for the realism purposes. But Columbus is a little bit better than Colorado, looks like, in terms of record, maybe. Philadelphia is probably pretty good, right? Philadelphia is actually atrocious. Damn, I didn't expect Philadelphia to be that bad. They're 22, 32, and 7. So, probably we should send them to Colorado or Columbus, but we will see which is the best for us. So, what type of trade value does Horkov have? A little bit, not too much. Colorado actually doesn't have interest in him, either does Columbus. Does Philadelphia have interest in him? Because it's kind of funny that he's interested in these teams, but they're not interested in him. No. None of these teams actually have interest in him, but he wants to go to them. So we have to try and figure out some sort of a deal with them, I guess. So if we add Horkov back to this deal, Does it make sense for Colorado to bring somebody like him in to help them get into a playoff spot? They would be cap compliant still, which is a nice thing to see, because obviously it kind of suck if they weren't cap compliant, but we are needing to take back salary, I think. Actually, no, we're just above the floor still, even by moving them, so that's good. We don't have to retain salary or bring in somebody on a salary cap hit. So do the Colorado Avalanche have anything interesting to us? In terms of, actually, we don't want to go skaters matching block because it's not set up properly. Rookie skaters. Tyson Barrie's kind of interesting, but he's got probably too much value. They don't really have that crazy prospect because Tarasenko's too much value here. If we look a little bit more in depth, this Goldobin guy, too much value. For Robiev, I don't know if he'll pan out. Barry's, like I said, kind of interesting because he's an offensive defenseman. He's playing currently in the AHL this season for Lake Erie. But I feel like we pretty much have that coming up eventually with like Justin Falk. So, yeah, these other guys are medium 9s. I don't feel like any of these prospects are going to move the needle that much. Calvin Pickard and Trevor Kane, not really much of anything either. We'd probably have to take back draft picks from them, which at the moment they'd be willing to give us a 3rd rounder for next year. But no picks this year, basically. No picks this year. 3rd rounder's too low value, it looks like. So we could probably get a 2nd rounder. Just Colorado does not have that 2nd rounder on the block. And that 2nd rounder actually might have more value than Sean Horkoff, so we might have to get back like a 3rd and a 4th or something for him, which, I mean, at least it'll offload some salary, but it's not the greatest. Let's take a look at Columbus here briefly, too. Let me actually hide my face again so you guys can kind of see the player values a little bit more. So Columbus does not want to move any of their picks really that early. They don't have a 3rd rounder even for next year, so that's probably not great. In terms of rookie skaters on the block that we could take in, oh, that's tough not to do. Cam Atkinson's my favorite player, if anybody didn't know that. 78 at 22 as a top 6 forward. He's currently still playing down in Syracuse. This would be technically his rookie season in real life. Oh, man, that's tough to not take Cam Atkinson. Should I bring in Cam Atkinson? I mean, he would fit our team down the stretch. I could throw him literally right in the lineup this season, too. What's the value like? The value is pretty close. I feel like it would be a good little addition. I feel like it would be. If I could just find a way just to put him in the NHL, I think he could still grow to being something good. So I think I honestly might trade him for my favorite player, which I know some people will be like, hey, you should have just traded for draft picks or something instead. Yeah, I mean, I could, but I don't think I'd be able to get much. Like, I'd probably get a 3rd and a 4th, and likely there's no chance I'm going to get a top 6 forward prospect in round 3 and 4. I don't think. So, I would probably trade Horkoff straight up for Cam. I'm just trying to check on the values and see how close they look. I feel like they look pretty close. I think they look pretty close. So, this would actually help Columbus well as well, because they're 27, 25, and 8, so I think they're trying to push for a playoff spot. If we look at their center depth as well, without Horkov, I mean, they technically might not need somebody like Horkov down the middle, but they could always play him as a winger. This definitely would help make them a little bit more deeper. You know what? I think I'm going to do this deal. And yeah, I think it's a nice one because it offloads salary cap for us. We get a guy that literally could end up being a top 6 forward for us and has been a pretty damn good AHLer at this point in time. I think I like this deal a lot. So let's send Sean Horkoff to Columbus and bring in my boy Cam Atkinson. That's rejected, apparently. Interesting. What if I threw in something that I don't have interest in? Is there anybody in the AHL that I don't really need? I'm curious on that. Let's see. Is there anybody interested? Let me go right wing as well. Anybody interesting here? I mean, I could just throw in somebody random. Who do they have interest in that's in as a rookie skater? They don't have an interest in a lot of things, to be honest. They do have interest in all of our picks, of course, but I'm not going to move our 1st rounders, 2nd rounders. I could give you guys an extra 6th round pick on top of that deal, maybe. Or maybe I do a 7th rounder for next year. And then I will take back... maybe I'll just do that. Yeah, basically give them a 7th rounder to take on the salary cap of Horkov, and we get in Cam Atkinson. Would that work? That's rejected. That's interesting. Pretty far away in value, to be honest. Well, Horkov, it says, has actually a lot of value, so I'm kind of surprised they said no to that. Maybe it's just because of his cap hit. I don't really know. What about a 6th round pick on top of that? It doesn't mean your trade block at all. Oh boy. Well, Columbus actually might be tougher to deal with. Maybe it's not going to be easy to get Cam. I thought this was going to be a home run easy deal. But it's not like I'm trying to get a 1st round pick for him. I might be willing to give a 5th rounder, to be honest. Horkov and a 5th for Cam. And that's pretty far away in value. Apparently they want a lot more value than that. That's kind of strange. Well, maybe we can't trade for Cam, unfortunately. Let's go to the last team that had interest, which is Philadelphia. I honestly might just have to trade him for picks. I should just go trade Finder and see if they would offer me anything, maybe. But Horkov to Philly. Philly's not doing good right now, so I don't feel like this is reasonable to trade for anything that they have. Actually, let's go to just a trade finder and see if there's an offer for Horkov out of those 3 teams. Or else I'm going to have to try and figure something out. But right now it seems like it's going to be tough to move on from him. None of those teams are interested in him whatsoever. He did give us teams, but I don't know if any of them will trade for him, which is kind of strange. So they don't know any offer. Let's go back to Colorado first and foremost. Actually, let's go back to Philly. Philly wouldn't make sense really though, because they won't move on from prospects probably. I'm just trying to look for picks for him, to be honest. I feel like sending him to Philly just, yeah, probably doesn't make any sense because he's basically going to the same area. I want to send him to Columbus, I think, because Columbus is the only team that might make the playoffs of those through. Colorado could potentially too, but does Colorado actually need the centers though? Because if Colorado needs the centers, that might be a better play for them. Not really. Not really. Yeah, maybe we'll send him to Columbus still then. Oh boy, this is going to be tough. Since I can't get Cam, is there anybody else that's interesting to me that I could steal from them that's around the same amount of value? DSP. I don't really want DSP. I don't think he's going to pan out. Matt Calvert. Matt Calvert's in the same boat as Cam, just a medium 9 instead. So, I don't mind that. And I think we could literally slot him into our lineup potentially. So, let's try and get Matt Calvert in. And maybe we just take in a draft pick instead, since I can't get Cam. They would be willing to give up some picks in this year's draft. I'd probably rather take something for next year, but they don't have a 3rd rounder for next year. So let's take, they actually have our own 3rd round pick. I didn't even remember that. That's kind of funny. We could get our own 3rd rounder back. Maybe we should get our own 3rd rounder back. A 3rd and Matt Calvert for Sean Horkov, would that work? I honestly don't know. Still rejected, so what if I just got rid of Calvert and literally just took back our own 3rd round pick and let's say a 4th round pick? Would that work? Instead of getting prospects, just getting picks. That's accepted. Okay, so I guess Columbus values their prospects a lot, which I applaud. So they just give me a 3rd and a 4th. We get our own 3rd round pick back, but Sean Horkov has been dealt to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, that's probably the best play we could have gotten. I mean, I probably could have added to try and get Cam Atkinson in, but I prefer to maybe wait until we actually have something of value that actually makes sense for them. So that deal is done. We do need to call up somebody from the AHL, so trying to think of who I want in the NHL. Hodgson is a depth forward, but we don't really want to take away from the AHL team too much. Ryan Patolny's a healthy scratch in the AHL, so we're going to call up Ryan Patolny as that other option. Just because he's not playing in the AHL, I don't really want to affect the AHL team too much. So I think this is probably the best move. Also, Robert Nilsson is dropped down to a 76. And it's mostly due to morale, I guess, because of how bad the team's been doing and he's been doing. But we'll get Patolny back into our NHL team. just because I think that's probably the best move for us to do. So that way we don't impact the AHL team at all, because the AHL team literally will be just as strong still, and I really want them to go for a Calder Cup if potential that happens. So I think that's good. That's good, and I think that's going to be our only move, because that's the only player I was hoping to kind of get away from on this roster. So let's continue assimilating. We'll go past the trade deadline now and see what type of moves end up happening. But yeah, it kind of sucks to have to move on from Sean Horkoff, but we needed to offload that salary cap eventually. And it kind of sucks that we weren't able to get back Cam Atkinson, but I will take it. Maybe eventually we could trade for Cam Atkinson. But let's see what happens in terms of AI trades in 2011-12. Do we get any big blockbusters, as Adam Burish is on waivers? Don't think I need him. Nah, 76 at 29. He's not really that much of anything, more just a physical bottom six guy. But I appreciate that, LA. Any interesting trades? No blockbusters, apparently. So let's take a look at what AI trades went down in 2011-12. I guess technically 2012. Let's hope that we get some blockbusters. So, terms of trades. The LA Kings have acquired Eric Cole from Columbus for a second, a third, and a goalie prospect. So, Columbus is trying to offload stuff, which kind of sucks because I just traded them Sean Horkoff, but oh well. Phoenix has acquired a third, Dennis Gerbeshkov, and a fourth from Ottawa for a second and a sixth-round pick. Toronto's acquired a third, Shane O'Brien and Marco Sturm from St. Louis for a second, and Yoni Orshio. So, I don't know why Toronto's adding, but okay. Detroit acquires Milan Hayduk and TJ Hensick. Kind of weird seeing Milan Hayduk in Detroit, considering Colorado and Detroit were rivals for such a long time. Colorado gets back a third, and some goalie prospect named Nilsson. All right. St. Louis acquires a third and a third from Minnesota for Carlo Koliakovo and a seventh. All right. Philadelphia gets Ryan Strome and a third from Boston for Matt Carl, Blair Betts, and Mark Flood. So Boston's loading up again, and Philadelphia gets a good prospect in Strome. Interesting deal. San Jose gets back Rob Blake from St. Louis. So Rob Blake was with San Jose last season, signed in St. Louis as a free agent, and now he got dealt back to San Jose again for a pretty good return, as the Blues get back Vincent Trocheck, Jamie Alexiak in a sixth-round pick. Dallas gets Nicholas Hjalmarsson, Brock Nelson, and Akeem Alou. Damn. That's a pretty big blockbuster trade probably happening, because Brock Nelson is a top 6'4 prospect. Hjalmarsson's a pretty solid overall defenseman. Alou's kind of an attack on probably to this deal, but what did Chicago get to give up all that? Mike Ribeiro. Interesting. Okay, so the Chicago Blackhawks are definitely trying to go for a cup, but kind of surprised they moved on from Hjalmarsson to get Ribeiro. But kind of an interesting deal there. Minnesota gets Jess Jaguar and Joel Lundqvist from the Sens. Ottawa gets back a second and a sixth. All right, so Jaguar's pretty low value at this point. Washington gets Kyle Quincy from Colorado. Colorado gets back a second and a third. Wonder if Colorado ends up drafting, Andre Vasilevsky, because they traded away Kyle Quincy. You guys would know if you were watching hockey back in the day. I think Detroit traded away Kyle Quincy. They acquired Kyle Quincy from Tampa. Tampa got back a pick that ended up becoming Vasilevsky, which is pretty insane. New Jersey got Matt Niskanen from Dallas. Dallas gets back a second and a fifth, not a seventh, what I'm saying. LA gets Peter Regan, Nick Boynton, and two others from Ottawa for Braxton Cuff and a third. I don't know who Braxton Cuff is, but I think he was a top 6'4 prospect from the first round. Nashville acquires Holden Rafji and Jamie Cox, so generated guys from Toronto. Toronto gets back Radulov, Jonathan Erickson, and Corey Potter. Toronto's apparently adding some players right now, so kind of interesting, considering I thought they were going to take a long rebuild, but they do bring in Radulov, so Nashville escapes that contract they gave him not that long ago. Jonathan Erickson gets tacked on to that, and same with Corey Potter. Boston gets Braden Coburn and Marcel Gottsch from Philadelphia. Philadelphia gets back Tim Thomas. So Tim Thomas has been moved on from Boston, and he's going to be joining the Philadelphia Flyers, who are not poised to make the postseason this year. So that's an interesting deal. All right. Edmonton acquires that. That's from our deal, so that's it. Some interesting deals, like the Ribeiro deal for sure, the Tim Thomas deal. There is some good deals in this deadline. Kind of weird about San Jose reacquiring Rob Blake and giving up that much to get him. Like, why didn't they just re-sign him? But interesting 2011-12 trade deadline. All right, let's get the rest of this regular season simulated, see what ends up happening. Obviously, we got to still find out the draft lottery results and all that too, but this is an interesting season for this team and for the shape of this league. We beat Buffalo. Colorado, we beat them as well. Okay, so we're starting to win some games after the deadline despite not making much moves. So I guess maybe moving on from Horkov helped this team a bit. We won 3 straight games and now we're going to lose 3 straight, right? Nope, we beat Colorado again there. And we beat Florida. So since that one trade, our team is in a better spot, which makes kind of no sense. But maybe Petolni's helping this team out a lot. Interesting. We still shouldn't have a good pick this year, regardless if we do get down the stretch. 7-5 win over Detroit. I don't know how we scored 7 goals, but I'll take it. I just don't want to finish with over 30 wins if possible here. Atlanta and Ottawa are both losses. So we're 23, 41, and 13. We only got 5 games to go. We are definitely not making the playoffs, and we are still the second worst team in the league at the moment. The Rangers might have the best odds to get first overall again. They did draft Nikita Kucherov, right? So they are definitely not as strong as they were in real life at this point in time. All right, let's go through these 5 games, and then we'll take a look at some stats and all that. We do beat Detroit for the second time near the end of the season, as Schmid has been injured with an upper body injury. His season is done. We'll just go replace a player on that. Boston's a shootout loss. Jordan Eberle now gets injured with an upper body injury. His season is done as well. Calgary, 4-1 win. Anaheim, 4-0 win. And Nashville is a loss. So a good stretch near the end. We might have cheesed ourselves out of a top pick that way, but we do finish 26, 42, and 14. Let's actually make sure all the AI teams are done their seasons as well. We'll just go best lines on that. Perfect. So let's take a look at some stats and see where we finished in terms of the standings and all that. So let's once again cover this up again, because I do like to make this a bit of a surprise in terms of team stats and player stats. So in terms of the standings, let's say where we finished. So the Caps finished first. We were the 3rd worst team in the league. Buffalo finished below us, and obviously the Rangers did too. So we have a good chance to potentially get first overall, because whenever you have the best odds, usually you don't get the number 1 pick. So kind of good to see us and Buffalo down there for realism purposes, because Buffalo obviously started falling off quite a bit after the 2011 playoffs. But in terms of goals for per game, we were the 2nd worst offensive team, only behind the New York Rangers, or above the New York Rangers, I should say. Goals against per game, we were pretty bad defensively. One of the top, our bottom 5 teams in the league, or bottom 4 teams, I guess even. Power play percentage, our power play was bad. Not really a surprise. And our penalty kill was also pretty bad. So everything didn't really work well for this team, which is good. But hopefully there's some underlying stats that are actually good from some of the players individually. 4, 3, and 3 in our last 10 games. So yeah, we definitely cheesed ourselves a little bit of a higher up pick potentially, but you never know with this lottery. And speaking of good stats, Sam Gagner finished with 77 points this season, which is pretty impressive considering how this team did not do well. So that's exactly what I want to see, is these young guys like that taking a big step while this team's not doing good. So Gagner with a career high in points, just barely, minus 24 this season, but still very, very impressed with Gagner. We will probably sign him long-term this offseason because of that. Cogliano also had a good year, 53 points for Cogs. Like that a lot. Only a minus 11 too, which is not the worst. Pouliot on 47 points. Marc-Antoine Pouliot kind of surprised me for an 81 overall. So we might hold on to him, or we could easily look to flip him because his value might be high. How much years does he have? Only a 1-year deal. He might be going to free agency because of that. Brule on 44 points. I'll take it from him. Like I said, we could easily hold on to him as a 3rd-line center if we want to, or we could try and find somebody worse. I don't know. Riley Nash on 14 points. He is still only a 77, but who knows, maybe soon he could be a 3rd-line center for us. Ryan Patolny got called up from the AHL, and it's actually pretty good. 8 points in 19 games. So he did get power play time, though, because he was playing exactly where Horkov was. Pelion, 4 points in 6 games as a depth forward is pretty good, too. Left wing side of things, O'Sullivan on 30 goals and 65 points. Another good year for Patrick O'Sullivan. I honestly don't know how he fits into my cards down the road still. He's still signed for 4 more seasons after this. So we could potentially hold on to him a little bit longer. But we could also try and capitalize on his value. Robert Nilsson, 34 points, not bad. Zach Boychuk, 18 points. And Ryan Jones, 17 points. Okay. Right wing side of things, Eberle, 51 points and 25 goals. So a solid year again for Jordan Eberle. He's up to an 81 overall. Better point totals, more goals. And worse plus minus, of course. But Jordan Eberle is definitely developing into being a good player. As long as he's next to a good passer, he should do well. D'Agostino on 18 points, and then Leeson had nothing in 4 games. But he wasn't minus either, so that's kind of impressive. From a defensive standpoint, we had Petrie on 26 points. We had Chorney on 21. Kind of surprised Chorney could do that, but that's okay. Spees on 16 points. Only a -4. That's really impressive considering how bad this team was defensively. O'Byrne on 11 points. Schmid on 8. Party on 5, and Lepisto had a goal in 7 games. And then from a goaltending perspective, Dubnyk finished with a .913. That is really impressive to me. He got better as the season went on, too. So Devan Dubnyk is probably going to get paid some good money because that save percentage on a team that did not make the playoffs and finished that low in the season is really good. Like, he almost had the same save percentage as last year. Obviously, a worse goals against, but I think that's a good year from Devan Dubnyk quite a bit. Obviously, Delorier didn't do very good, though, but he did pick up 2 shutouts, so I'll take it. Any goalie goals? Nope, no assist either. All right, let's take a look at some stats around the league. Who led the NHL in points in 2012? The answer is Hanze Kopitar again. So Kopitar has still been really good so far in the series. Obviously, him, Ryan Smith, and Dustin Brown, very good top line in LA. 135 points for him. Crosby on 124. Ovechkin on 117. A couple other guys on a 110 plus. 3 of them all are Washington Capitals players up there. God damn. The Caps are insane. No question about it. They definitely can pull off a three-peat. Most goals this season, Ovechkin on 67, and it was Crosby on 62. Parise hit 60. All right. So a couple 60 goal scorers, a lot of 50 goal scorers. Let's see. Best defenseman for points. Mike Green, again, 80 points for him and a plus 55. Yeah, the Caps are insane. I don't know if there's ever a way to stop them unless the salary cap becomes into effect for them. Because Mike Green is a pending free agent this offseason. That's going to be interesting to see if they could afford him. Brian Campbell on 65 points. Tom Gilbert, we traded him to Detroit, and he picked up 65 points this year. So Gilbert's also going to be a pending UFA again, but he has been actually really good in these last 2 years. Was good with us. We traded him away, and he's been even better in Detroit. So shout out to Tom Gilbert. Gonchar up there as well. Duncan Keith, Ryan Whitney. Oh, wow. Ryan Whitney, of course, after we flipped him away to New Jersey, too. So literally a lot of the guys that we had last season made a good impact where they went, so I don't mind that. Best goalie this season in terms of wins was Jonathan Quick with 46. Him and Semyon Varlamov, obviously in Washington still. Most shutouts this season, Varlamov, not a surprise. Best save percentage by a starter is Varlamov. And best goals against average by a starter is, what do you know, Varlamov. So, Varlamov, Ovechkin, bunch of guys on Washington are going to win awards this year. Mike Green, yeah, they definitely are poised to win a third cup if they have a good playoff success this year, too. No goalie goals this season. Most assists by a goalie was Luongo with 5. All right. I do want to actually take a look at the save percentage again for a second. Yeah, that season from Devan Dubnyk was really good. He was literally like wear and save percentage amongst starters. Like, let's sort this by, I guess, 50 wins or 50 games played. Devan Dubnyk was technically the second best goalie that played more than 50 games in save percentage, I think. Wait, let me sort this again. Why does it put the 915 below the 913? But he was the third best, I guess, technically. So, yeah, Devan Dubnyk really was impressive this year. And if he continues to assimilate like that, we might as well hold on to him until Grubauer's ready. But he is a pending free agent, so hopefully he doesn't ask too much. Best rookie this season for 2012 is going to be Taylor Hall with 70 points in 75 games, so he did miss some due to injury, but he finished his first. Landeskog number 2. Radulov still considered a rookie, which is kind of funny. But yeah, he got dealt, obviously, at the deadline from Nashville to Toronto. Also, sorry for the background noise if you hear any. It's like some construction going on or something like that nearby. So there is that. I do want to take a look at our AHL team briefly as well. See how good the totals are in Springfield. We'll just briefly go through this, though. Hodgson on 62 points. Damn. Looks pretty good. Yeah, good depth scoring, good plus minuses. The AHL team should be playoff bound. Grubauer improved drastically. He picked up 13 shutouts. What the hell? I think I made the sim in the AHL a little bit strange. 13 shutouts is outrageous. But a 904 save percentage? Like, what? Like, at least his save percentage got better in this episode, but I don't know how the hell he got 13 shutouts. Like, actually, let me take a look at the rest of the AHL as well. See how crazy the shutout totals are. Okay, yeah, they're definitely outrageous because of how I built this roster, I guess. But Grubauer's literally leading the AHL in shutouts right now. But there's a bunch of guys over 10 shutouts. That's why we don't look at the AHL stats that often, I guess. All right, so there is that. The question is now, who's going to win the Stanley Cup in 2012, and also where we're going to draft and all that. So let's wrap up the rest of the season. Is Washington going to pull off a three-peat? If you guys want to see the playoff bracket for 2012, just in case, it's going to be Chicago, Minnesota, LA, San Jose, Vancouver, Nashville, Anaheim, Detroit, Washington, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, and Florida, Montreal, Toronto. So Toronto actually did make the playoffs in 2012, so that's kind of surprising. And then Boston and Atlanta. All right, well, let's find out who ends up winning the Stanley Cup. Who is going to win the championship? Also, hopefully our AHL team makes it far this year. I didn't get any notification about them winning a playoff round, so they probably already got eliminated by this point. If they're actually in the playoffs, that is, which I think they... Oh, never mind. It just took a little bit to get that one up. So they do win the first round. So good on that. Do they win the second round? Come on, Springfield. You got this. Do it for Homer Simpson. No, I think they got eliminated. Maybe. Nope, they got to the next round. They're on to the conference finals. Come on, Springfield. Like I said, do it for Homer as Carl Hagelin goes down with an injury. Oh, boy, that's not great. I'll go replace Burr on that. Come on, Springfield. You got this. You got this. Schmid is back for the NHL. We're just going best lines there. Come on. Hagelin's back. I don't think they're in the playoffs anymore, though, right? Because I didn't get any notification. JF Jacques was getting first line ice time. Okay, that's a bit strange. Let's get Hagelin back in there just in case they're still in a playoff race. Which hopefully they are, but I'm not too sure if they are or not. Let me stop the sim. Ah, they didn't win it. So Detroit wins the Stanley Cup in 2012. So there is a new champion this year. And then Rochester wins the Calder Cup. So after the 2008 season, Detroit ends up winning in 2012. Huh, all right. And then Rochester won the AHL, which means both streaks have been broken up. So there's a new champion in both the NHL and AHL. Let's look at that playoff bracket. See what went down. So it was a Detroit-Boston Cup Finals in 2012. I mean, it's not too far off that Boston obviously was in the finals, because in real life they were in the finals in 2011. Detroit ended up getting through teams like Minnesota. They also went through San Jose. All right. Interesting. Washington got bounced in the second round by the Bruins. So the Bruins almost knocked out the defending back-to-back champions, but almost won the Stanley Cup, but lost in 7. Meanwhile, in the AHL, Manchester almost pulled off a three-peat, but they lost to Rochester in 7. All right, that's kind of crazy. So shout out to the NHL and the AHL. Let's take a look at some awards. Wrap up the rest of the season. So Detroit wins the Stanley Cup. Washington won the President's Trophy. Individual awards, Kopitar wins his second Art Ross, and he wins also his second Hart. Mike Green wins his back-to-back Norris trophies. All right. Kopitar his second Lady Byng. Taylor Hall wins the Calder. Brian Rafalski won the Conn Smythe for Detroit. That's kind of insane. I should actually look at the Red Wings team a little bit more in depth, I guess, soon, too. Varlamov wins the Vezina. That's cool. Corey Crawford, the Jennings. Him and Dwayne Rolson in Chicago. Sammy Salo, the Bill Masterton. Toronto's head coach, the Jack Adams. Who would have been this at this point in time? I can't even remember. Maybe Wilson still? I don't even know. Mikko Koivu wins his second straight Selke Trophy. Kopitar to Lindsay. And Ovechkin wins his back-to-back Richards. AHL awards, Michael Repik with a couple. Trevor Smith, I think that is. Johnny Gaudreau was the best rookie in the AHL, so Toronto's got a good prospect coming. David Schlemko was the best defenseman. All right. Brian Boucher, best goalie. David Steckel, the Calder Cup playoff MVP. Johnny Gaudreau again. Nolan Baumgartner. Why am I saying Nelson Baumgartner? Nolan Baumgartner. Alexander Salak. Michael Repik again. All right. So there's that. Let's take a look at that Detroit winning Cup team. See who was on that roster when they beat the Bruins. That would have been an interesting Cup Finals for around this point. So yeah, Rafalski led with 29 points. You also had Datsuk, Zetterberg, Milan Hajduk, who was acquired from Colorado, of course. Yeah, he had killer playoffs. He was pretty good in the regular season with Detroit too. Filppula, Franzen, Bertuzzi. Oh yeah, Tom Gilbert. I forgot that we sent Tom Gilbert there after I just literally saw that he was up there in points by a defenseman. So shout out to Tom Gilbert. We flip him away. He wins the Stanley Cup. Chuck Kobasu there too. Steve Monador. Has Monador won 2 cups? I feel like he has now. No, maybe not. I thought he was in Washington though when they won 2. Oh, he was, but he didn't play in the regular season. That's right. So he technically should be a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, I guess at this point. Shane Morrison was there too. Thomas Kopecky. And then the goalies, Howard and Conklin. All right, so shout out Detroit winning a Stanley Cup. All right, so now we do have, multiple first-round picks this year. I think only one of them is a lottery selection because we have New Jersey and Anaheim's picks, and I think both of them made the playoffs. So they are going to be late first-round picks, but they're not going to be the latest, I guess. All right. Well, let's find out. Actually, Heavy Bullen was in Detroit too, wasn't he? I thought I traded him to Detroit. Did he get sent to the AHL? I got to take a look at that quick because I thought I traded Heavy Bullen there. Because I remember mentioning about him being with Tom Gilbert and stuff. Let's go to Grand Rapids here. Just briefly check a look at this. Yeah, Heavy Bullen got sent to the AHL. He got sent to the AHL. He started the season off in Detroit. I guess they brought in Conklin. Heavy Bullen went down to the AHL again. And yeah, doesn't get credit with that Stanley Cup victory. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for him. But at least Tom Gilbert won it. All right, so draft lottery results. This is a big moment for his team. Obviously, back in real life, the Edmonton Oilers were winning a bunch of first overall picks. Do we have a chance to get the first overall pick this year? And then hopefully we could also draft Nail Yakupov this year as well. Because he'll be early second round probably. And no, we will not win the draft lottery. We fall from 3rd to 5th. Well, we're still going to get an elite prospect, so I can't complain too much, but that really sucks. Buffalo falls back from 2nd to 4th. Dallas moves from 9 to 3. St. Louis moved from 12 to 2. So the Blues with a lot of luck on their sides, and the Rangers will have back-to-back first overall picks. Last year they took Kucherov, which means once again they're probably going to get a really good player. God damn, man. I'm going to write down this draft lottery results again, just like last year, and we're going to go run through it and do a little bit of a mock draft. But man, this kind of sucks that we fell back that much, but we still should get a good player. We have picks that we could try and move up if we really want the first overall pick, but maybe we just want to take an elite prospect. It doesn't really matter too much. I don't even remember who's supposed to go first overall this year, if there was a generated guy or not. Let's see. So Phoenix, I just want to make sure we got this mock draft ready to go, because I am kind of curious on who's getting who. So there is that. Okay. In terms of retirements this season, any big retirements? Any big retirements? Obviously, we don't lose anybody probably, but starting off on forwards, let's actually sort this by team just to make it a bit interesting. So actually, there is some free agents, I guess, too, technically. So let's just sort by points. So starting off with Mike Modano retires in Dallas. Pretty big retirement right there. Bill Guerin also retires. A couple of former Dallas Stars legends. We have Robert Lang retiring. Mark Recchi retired. Slava Kozlov. Todd Marchant. Yeah, some pretty big names. Slava Kozlov and Victor Kozlov retired the same season. That's kind of funny. Not that they're related or anything. Scott Walker down there too. Darcy Tucker. Ricard Wallin retired. At 32? Wow, I am surprised. I literally made this guy and I didn't think he was going to retire at 32 years old. I don't think I've ever seen a guy retire at 32 that I've custom made. Interesting. Best defenseman that retired this season was Brian Pothier. Adrian Aucoin also retires with Washington after 2 cups, I think. Chris Chelios has finally hung them up as well at the age of 50. That's hilarious. Alright. So it's good we're seeing some of these guys retire already. What about goalies? Freddie Narain is the only big goalie, I guess. Technically, Valaket's there as well. Alright. So there's the retirements for this season. Coach retirements. Did we lose anybody? The answer is no. We did not. So that's good. Continue simulating. Let's take a look at this 2012 draft class. Actually, let's first do progress reports and contract situation. Progress reports, any crazy growth? Jordan Eberle is going up a lot. He's up to an 84. Mostly statistical. Actually, not a lot of statistical. Actually, no, there is a lot of statistical. Never mind now. Some natural, some statistical. So he's probably only actually an 82, but still he's growing. O'Sullivan staying pretty much where he is. Leeson getting some growth. Justin Falk's pretty much almost ready to make the show. Like to see that. Gagne's an 88. Love to see that. Yeah, Gagne's looking nice. Some growth from Jones and stuff. Dubnyk actually is up to an 84. Alright, what about in the system though? Hagelin only went up to 79, I guess. So I guess he's kind of only still a depth forward at this point. But in the system, we are getting growth from, let's actually sort by potential to make it better. Our elite goalie prospects are getting growth. Some taking a little bit longer than others. Nyquist is close. Toffoli's getting close. Alright, yeah, looks like we're getting some good growth. Grubauer up to 73. Burmistrov still 76. We do have a lot of guys listed as depth forwards, so maybe we should start playing some of them just to make sure they actually grow. So there is all of that. Alright, contract situation for this offseason. Do we have any big contracts to dish out? I don't feel like we do other than Gagne, really, right? Oh yeah, Brule, I guess, as well, kind of, but he's not huge. So Sam Gagne, I definitely want to give him a long-term extension. He does not have a lot of organizational interest, so he only wants a 3-year deal right now, but we definitely will probably visit giving him a 8-year deal if he wants to do that at the re-sign stage. Not too sure how much we're going to afford to give him, but I would love to hold on to him long-term. Gilbert Brule, we definitely should probably just hold on to him for now. He's not going to cost us too much, which is good. Pouliot's a pending UFA. He's actually grown too much, I think. Yeah, we'll probably move on from Marc-Antoine Pouliot. Petrie, obviously, and all the RFAs will probably hold on to. Robert Nilsson, probably we can move on from as well. He's not going to cost us a ton. We could bring him back if we want, but we don't want to be too good next year. So, yeah, all the RFAs will likely get held on to. UFAs, we could honestly let go of a good chunk of them, unless we need them for the AHL, I guess. So, there's that. And then goalies, Devin Dubnyk's kind of a big one, I guess, as well. What is he wanting right now? 5 years at 3.4. You know what? That's actually not really that bad. I honestly might be willing to give something like that to him, because he does have organizational interest as well. It's no clause involved. Yeah, we could definitely give him a good little contract. Tuomainen, the pending RFA, no, pending UFA, I guess, medium elite goalie prospect, needs a contract. He's probably going to get a contract, which means Brian Pitton, despite his good stats in Springfield's probably gone. So that way we could have at least our good goalie prospects like Grubauer and Tuomainen playing in the minors. So there's that. Now we got to do our mock draft and take a look at this 2012 draft class. So the first overall pick this year is supposed to be Philip Forsberg. So the Rangers are going to get Forsberg, I guess, to play alongside of friggin' Kucherov. So that's going to be kind of crazy. Festrini would be probably going to the St. Louis Blues at number 2. Vasiliev would probably be going number 3 to the Dallas Stars. Buffalo is looking like they're going to get Thomas Hertl, which means we might be able to get Morgan Rielly. And I don't really know if I want Morgan Rielly, but he is an elite offensive defenseman. But, you know, he's pure offense. And in real life, he's pretty shit defensively. There's also Shane Gostisbehere. He might be going to Carolina if we do take Rielly. Cameron, who's a center elite prospect. We could take this guy, even though he's generated. Ooh, I do kind of like the looks of that, but we do have Sam Gagner already as a center, so maybe we take Cameron, maybe we take Riley, tough to say. But if we did take Riley, Cameron would end up in Philadelphia. This generated guy named Sutton would end up with the Islanders. Nikita Gusev would end up in Tampa. Not too bad for realism. Phoenix would end up with Chandler Stevenson. Columbus would end up with Teuvo Teravainen. Trouba would end up on Colorado. Calgary would end up with Tom Wilson. And Hampus Lindholm would end up in Ottawa, where he played in Johnny's Ottawa Senators years back in NHL 13, if I remember right. Something like that. Huh. That's interesting. So that's what the mock draft would look like. But let's see what else we got here. Let's sort by potential. There is also Vasilevsky mid-first round. Like, if we really wanted to take a crazy good goaltender, we could always just go for Vasilevsky way off the board. But we could also let him go to an AI team. Connor Hellebuck's also supposed to go late first round. We do have 3 first-rounders, remember. So we could probably draft a lot of good things. Like, if we go to our draft board, aside from that early pick of ours, we have 19th and 15th. So we could literally draft Vasilevsky with one of those picks from that trade, which is pretty impressive. So I'd say first round, with our first 3 picks, we could either go Riley or Cameron with that first, 5th overall pick. 15th, we could probably go with pretty much anybody. We could go with Vasilevsky. We could go with Jacob Slavin. We could go with Connor Hellebuck. I honestly don't even know. Maybe even Colton Parayko. But we should get some pretty good prospects in this first round. And then early second round, because we do have multiple second-round picks, we could get the man, the myth, the legend, Nail Yakupov. And he will be out pretty much almost NHL ready, but just with no potential. So, should probably be able to draft him and see if we could grow him into being a superstar. So there is that. And that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to the 2012 NHL Draft. We'll hopefully get some good steals. We'll probably stay pat with our picks, just make a lot of good selections. And hopefully we could start building this prospect pool. So that way, one time, at least in this franchise mode, we could win a Stanley Cup. Or maybe we could even turn this team into a dynasty like they were when they had Gretzky and all that type of thing. So think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.